I'd like to ask all who are able to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to welcome all to this evening's regular board meeting at the Lakeview Public Schools Board of Education today, Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, 7 p.m., excuse me, at the boardroom at the Weed Educational Campus. One note before we get started is that Ms. Stanton is out this evening due to a personal situation, so we move on with the minutes of the meeting of January 7, 2025.
Mr. President, I move we approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Madam Secretary, have we any public communication this evening?
I do. I have a public communication form filled out by Chris McCarthy. Is that the last name? Hi. So if you wouldn't mind coming up to the table, that'd be great. Just set my little timer here. Okay. So, excuse me for just a minute. I'm just going to read something, okay? Okay. So the Board of Education provides for public communication on their agenda so that members of the community can come and make a statement to the board. Statements to the board can be on any school district topic and should be no more than 3 minutes in length. Public communication is not a question and answer session. Individual board members generally will not respond to comments provided during public communication. As board secretary, I will keep time and try to warn you when you have 10 seconds left out of the 3 minutes. Thank you for you signing up today and coming. Okay, I'm going to start the watch. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Chris McCarthy. I'm here to voice some concerns I have for my daughter Emma McCarthy and her classmates currently enrolled in a special education class. First, I want to start by saying that I live in the Lakeshore District. We moved my daughter into Lakeview because the special education program was much better. So, in the beginning year, she's in 11th grade now. She's been with you guys for about 5 years now. She was doing really well until this year. I would like to begin by saying my daughter was very nervous about beginning high school. But after getting into Lakeview in high school in 9th grade, she had wonderful teachers that helped her grow, and she was thriving until this year. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my daughter. She has a genetic disorder called Pataki-Lupke syndrome that causes her to have low muscle tone. She had to go through 6 months of physical therapy due to the job she was given last year. Also, stress and anxiety causes her muscles to tighten up, which she has had nothing but stress this whole year. My daughter is a very kind person and loves to help people. She's currently volunteering at the American House, and in the beginning, she struggled a little bit. She had to learn the ropes of the position, but now she is thriving. She's a person that wants to make everyone happy, so when she is struggling with something, she has a hard time saying no and expressing how she feels. So, she's involved with the work program through the high school. And her former teacher left, and he took the jobs with him. I'm not sure why, what happened, but they're sending these kids out to do janitorial work at the schools. My daughter's not built for that. She was mopping floors, scraping boogers off walls, taking out trash, cleaning water fountains, and she was given dirty rags and no gloves. They're not janitors, and they should not be taken advantage of. There's nobody overseeing the work program these students are enrolled in that is placing these students in a proper work environment and used to fill positions that is vacant because I see signs for janitor work in the district all the time. So I feel like they're pushing these kids to do their work. I've had some of my daughter's teachers tell her not to inform us of what is going on in the school, rather to go to them, which is, that's confusing her, especially being freshman.
10 seconds left, sir. Thank you.
We have told our daughter to come to us when something is wrong, to share her concerns with us. My daughter is afraid to go to school now and is nervous about everything that is going on. Is it not bullying when the school is using its power to intimidate our daughter into not being able to speak freely?
Thank you for bringing your concern to us.
Thank you.
Mr. Paul's going to follow up on that. Okay, thank you. All right, anything else?
Nope.
All right. Moving on with the agenda to student representative report. Ms. McDade, good evening.
Good evening. First, I have updates from the Wheat Early Childhood Center. Preschoolers this month are learning about community helpers, teddy bears, and of course, Valentine's Day. They are also focusing on being loving and kind to others. Their second round of parent-teacher conferences are next Wednesday and Thursday. This is always a great time for staff to come together with parents to talk about their child's progress and growth. They will also have their spring scholastic book fair during conferences. Students and parents really seem to enjoy the fall book fair, so they are hoping that the spring one is a success as well. This Thursday night, they are holding the preschool open house for the 25-26 school year, starting at 5:30, going to 7:30 p.m. Enrollment for next school year begins after the open house, and they are very excited to start planning and enrolling for another great year. Harmon Elementary. Harmon completed winter NWEA testing over the last few weeks. They had 161 scholars test in both ELA and math. Overall, Harmon grew a total of 967 RITs in ELA and 1,422 RITs in math. Harmon scholars put in tremendous effort and as a result grew an average of 6 points in ELA and 8.83 points in math. They will be leveraging this growth through the spring testing cycle that begins after spring break. Harmon teachers will be using this winter data to provide their instruction as the final instructional stretch takes place. Harmon PTO celebrated their annual Sweetheart Dance last week for Valentine's Day. Over 200 scholars and parents participated in this event, and it took place at JMS. Scholars danced the night away, had dinner and treats, and enjoyed a selfie booth while making memories with Harmon friends. Final preparation is underway to celebrate March's Reading Month, where reading will be promoted with special guest readers, Drop Everything and Read, and a storybook parade. Greenwood Elementary. Greenwood has had a fantastic month filled with exciting updates and strong community support. The PTO has granted each teacher with $250 for flexible learning environment materials, totaling $5,000 to enhance Greenwood's classrooms. Purchases include alternative lighting, seating options, fidget tools, and more, ensuring engaging and comfortable spaces for all students. Special thanks to Melissa Barada and Peggy Dell for bringing this proposal to life. Building updates include a freshly painted gym over winter break, as well as new murals and artwork in progress showcasing the Grizzly mascot. Plus, playground renovations broke ground last weekend, which is very thrilling for students as spring nears. Academically, their winter data benchmark meetings highlighted significant student growth thanks to the dedicated teachers, specialists, and interventionists. They also celebrated Kindness Week, engaging in random acts of kindness. The excitement has led them to extend the initiative with a fun challenge. If students reach 1,000 acts, the main office staff will wear silly pajama onesies on Friday. Additionally, the PTO's Friendship Bracelet fundraiser fostered appreciation and connection among students. There's so much to celebrate at Greenwood. Thank you for your continued support in making the school a fantastic place for students to learn. Ardmore Elementary. At Ardmore, they are excited to host their annual Daddy-Daughter Dance next week with the theme Over the Rainbow. Additionally, February is all about kindness at Ardmore. They're celebrating through weekly Spirit Days every Wednesday, a school-wide assembly, and a daily focus on kindness in the classroom, as well as during their mindful moments. With all of the recent snowfall, students have been having a blast at recess and have truly mastered the art of getting on and off their snow gear. Princeton Elementary. Princeton has had a very busy February so far. They have been assessing student progress and report cards, and spring conferences are coming up next week. In addition, this weekend, Princeton will host the annual Boy Scouts Pinewood Derby on Saturday the 22nd. Looking ahead to March, the PTO Ladies and Lads event will take place on Saturday, March 8th at LHS. They are looking forward to this out-of-this-world event. They hope everyone has a wonderful March. Jefferson Middle School. Jefferson Middle School has completed the winter NWEA testing, and the staff has already begun to dig into the data. They've celebrated wins as well as used this data for instructional planning to meet the needs of all students. JMS held their open house and hosted about 40 families, allowing them to engage with staff, hear an informational presentation, and receive a tour of the building. The JMS counselors visited each fifth grade class in all of the elementary schools to discuss the course selection process to students. A parent informational meeting was also held this evening for the principal to answer any scheduling questions before their incoming students submit their course selection sheets. The 8th graders are engaging with the counseling office at the high school as they prepare to select their coursework as they begin their journey to the high school. The JMS band is performing this evening at the high school, and JMS staff wishes them luck as they prepare for their festival. Lastly, Lakeview High School. Students have completed their second round of NWEA testing. Staff was encouraged by the data when comparing the first round to the second round, especially in math. All grades increased their math scores beyond the expected growth as dictated by the NWEA norms. Wellness Week was a resounding success. Mrs. Purdy organized many activities and events for all staff and students throughout the week. Students also attended an all-grades assembly given by CARE of Southeastern Michigan titled Addiction 101 with an emphasis on the dangers of vaping. At the last PLC meeting on our early release day, teachers were able to dive into discipline data from the first semester and give feedback as to how to improve certain aspects of the code of conduct, along with the attendance phone calls by teachers to families. This has been a tremendous help in developing relationships with families as well as having a positive effect on student attendance. The LHS open house took place on February 5th. A special thank you to all the staff who attended, setting up booths and tables in the auditorium to showcase what LHS has to offer. Also, a special thank you to the LHS ambassadors who gave tours of the building to families after the presentation. Curriculum night, at LHS was also a tremendous success. Counselors were able to give a detailed look into the LHS schedule and curriculum while answering questions from current and prospective Lakeview families. Scheduling for the 25-26 school year is underway. Students in each grade level attended presentation given by the counseling staff explaining the process as well as grade level requirements for schedules. LHS has begun the process of starting a unified basketball team. Unified basketball brings any student with an IEP and students without together to compete, build friendships, and have fun. There are many schools in the area that have unified basketball teams, and we want to provide that opportunity for students at LHS. A very special thanks to Molly Moffitt-Dawson and Abigail Wilbur for organizing this opportunity and gathering student interest. Thank you.
Awesome. Once again, lots going on,
Always.
and I trust you had a nice break over the last 4 days, so good stuff. A little bit of snow to mix into the festivities, so.
My apologies for extending it.
Oh, that's right, it was 5 days, wasn't it?
I think everyone's going to forgive you.
All right, well, again, thank you very much for your share this evening. Good stuff, lots of good stuff. Anybody have any comments for our student rep this evening? No? All right, thank you. Moving on to Board of Education Administration comments. Again, as our student rep, Ms. McDade, shared, lots going on these days at all of our buildings, elementary buildings, middle school and high school. I believe we're in the midst of state, regional, and final season for all of our sports, so lots going on there. We're in full swing here, halfway through we're past the halfway point of this school year. So things are looking good and continue to look good. Any other comments from the board?
I think it's really awesome. Our math scores are going up. I'm hoping that is a correlation to the new program we put into effect. I'm hoping, and I think it's really great to see that in our school district. I know the ELA scores went up too, but just that we implemented that new program this year, and I'm really hoping that it just keeps going up like that.
Good stuff. Any other comments?
I just wanted to say thank you to my son attended the Little Huskies basketball camp the last 4 Saturdays. Great success. I want to thank Coach Carr and the boys basketball team. First of all, for getting up at 9 a.m. every Saturday and helping out. But they were great. They were very positive for the kids, and they were helping them out and teaching. My son has really enjoyed it. Their second year in a row, and it's a really good thing they do. I did it when I was younger, and it's still going.
Yeah, and the one thing about the Little Huskies is those boys might be coming back late on a Friday night from a game like Marysville, Port Huron, but they're all there Saturday morning to work with the little guys, and they really enjoy it. So I'm glad that your son had a fun time.
And I'm guessing that a lot of those kids that are on the basketball team now came up through the same program, so good stuff. Any other comments? Administration?
Yes, the governor released her state budget proposal about a week and a half ago. So the state budget process is underway. Tax collections were surprisingly higher than they expected, so there will be a lot of wrangling, I'm sure, with the Senate, House, and governor all ready to decide where they want to push this money that is a surprise of extra. So make your opinions known at the state level with our leadership. Thanks to the building leaders and some of our staff who are hosting their open houses for families. Still to come, as she noted, kindergarten roundup tomorrow, preschool open house Thursday. We are blessed to have good staff throughout the district, and we have just recently had Teacher of the Year voting internally, and those results are probably going to get released here this week. And finally, I want to thank a lot of the teachers and all of our professional staff, other professional staff like counselors and social workers and folks like that. Many of them participate in various work groups and committees throughout the year at different times for different reasons. And, you know, the input those folks provide helps guide the district to the future and come up with new ideas and program implementations. So I just wanted to, you know, let them know they're valued and appreciated when they participate in those. And that's all I've got.
I got something. As Mr. Dombrowski mentioned, we are starting to wrap up our winter sports season, so our teams are starting to go into their postseason stuff. But a couple of things I want to highlight already. Our boys swim team won the county championship for the second year in a row. So that is something that nobody had ever done it before. Those young men did it last year, and then they said, well, we're going to do it again because it was so fun. So, so back-to-back, you know, county champions, that's something to be proud of, especially when you beat like the second largest school in the state, Dakota, to win the championship. So that's that was a, you know, real excitement. And you know, it's always the nice video I get of our coach jumping into the water with the kids after they win. That's kind of a tradition. So and then wrestling, they were the first ones to kind of start their state tournament. They won their district championship for the third year in a row. And then we have two boys going to Ford Field as state qualifiers next weekend. And we had a young lady make history. Again, we always seem to be making some history here at Lakeview. Lily Denson is our first girls district and regional champion. She's wrestling in the girls division, so she is going to be one of the top 4 seeds going into the state tournament at Ford Field. So congrats to her, and hopefully she'll be able to get her picture on the Wall of Fame as an All-Stater after she finishes her time at Ford Field, and hopefully the other two boys do as well. So that's all I got.
Nice. Any other comments? None? All right. Moving on with the agenda, item F, 2025 MASB Board Election, Region 8 Director Candidates.
The board has biographical information sheets on the candidates running to be members of the board of directors of the Michigan Association of School Boards. Lakeview is entitled to 1 vote for a Region 8 director for a 3-year term. Voting window is now from January through March 5th, 2025. At this time, we look for a nomination, and I think there's only 2 candidates running for that seat, that number 8 seat.
No, there's 3,
Oh, there's 3, okay.
I think.
1, 2, 3,
Meisner, Wallace, and
1, 2,
Rogers.
3, 4.
No, but I believe there's 4. No, that's way from you. Okay. They're all regional. Okay.
There's 8, yeah. Oh.
At this time, I'd like to make a recommendation for Randall Meisner of Fitzgerald Public Schools, Macomb County.
Any other nominations, or are we good with that? We're good? All right, Randall Meisner, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to item G, future financing discussion.
Over the past several weeks, Lakeview's design and construction team has worked closely with administration to diligently examining the status of all Lakeview's facilities, sites, and major equipment. The purpose of this background work was to identify a detailed capital improvement plan that summarizes district facility, site, and equipment needs looking forward up to 10 years. Information was gathered from many source documents, historical records, and through personal examination during building walkthroughs. Tonight, our team's going to provide the board a short presentation summarizing and outlining these future needs. The information is categorized by building, by project, and by trade areas such as roofing, paving, electrical, mechanical, etc. The information gathered includes technology, infrastructure, and equipment. Ultimately, the summary of needs allows us to place estimates on the cost for the work with some escalation assumptions based on how many years in the future these things might be completed. Representatives from Partners in Architecture, Barton Mel Builders, and Wright Hunter Technology are here to answer questions the board may have throughout the presentation. Daryl, I think you have the trigger in your hand.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Carl, and thanks to the board for being here tonight. Excited to share some of the work we've been up to over the last several months with the team here. I've been in front of the board before as part of the construction team, but just maybe a little quick about my background. I've been with Barton Mel for 18 of the last 22 years, all of that in K-12 construction. I also spent 4 years as a director of operations for a school district in St. Clair County, so I've sat in Sean's seat before. So I'm hopeful to bring some of that experience to the board as you guys, develop plans for your facilities here in the future. And then I will let Partners in Architecture and Wright and Hunter just talk a little bit about their involvement with the process here.
So I'm Scott Burney from Wright and Hunter. I've met many of you over the years, and I've worked with the district over a number of bond issues. We're again happy to be part of the team assessing the need in the district, looking at all the technologies that are within our schools, as well as the security systems that are in our schools. That was our focus of the assessment.
Darren McKenna with Partners in Architecture. Vicki also wanted to be here, but she caught that bug everybody else is catching, so she wasn't able to make it. So, no, she's staying home. Good. We've been working in the district since about '06 as well. For a long time, I've been working in the district since 2009. Very familiar with the facilities, excited to be back here again. I think Lakeview does a great job maintaining their facilities and keeping them up to date. So it's great to see that we're talking about potentially continuing that. So thanks for the opportunity.
And a couple of the firms that aren't here is Peter Basso Associates, which would be the mechanical and electrical, and they work directly with Partners in Architecture, and Detroit Roofing and Inspection Services, the district's roofing consultant. So through Sean, they weighed in on the roofs and helped provide some information related to the roofing projects. So just a little about the process and what we've been up to. So back in December, we started walking facilities. As we've kind of mentioned, there's a lot of experience here with the district, but there's no really replacement for laying your eyes on things and seeing things firsthand. So we spent some time going through the facilities. Sean, kind of working through and pointing out some of those, kind of key systems. We've been collecting data, as Carl mentioned, working with we have access to the state audit information. We use that. Working with Sean and your maintenance contractors. So not only, keeping track of or, identifying pieces of equipment, but also trying to understand which pieces of equipment are really operating, worse or better than others. So a little deeper dive, working through administration to gather stakeholder input and making sure that, all the voices, in the district are being heard, identifying those needs and wants, and then generating budget so that the district can make decisions going forward. And we think this is really like an initial or a key first step in starting that prioritization process. Never been through one of these where there wasn't, more needs than available dollars. So really having all of this information is the first step to help the district prioritize. A little on timing and schedule. So there's been some perhaps discussion about a potential November election. So really the team is using that information to try to establish a schedule to provide information that would meet, that potential timeline. And so we really look back from what a potential election date would be and those key milestones that you have to achieve. And really what we're looking at is delivering some type of draft bond application to the board in May of 26. And so if you look at where we're at today, which is delivering this kind of draft assessment, I think the district's really ahead of the game on what we see in this area. So you have several months to review this information, ask questions, multiple trips to the board if necessary to help the district and the board understand your needs.
Daryl, just a correction, all your dates are 1 year too far out.
2025, correct. We're still working towards the May of 25, correct.
So November of 25, not
Yeah.
26.
Accurate, thank you. In the board pack, we have several summaries, and those summaries, as Carl mentioned, are really kind of chopping that information up in different categories to, again, help understand what you have by priority, whether that's durations, what are your 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 10 needs by scope, looking at the projects by, what you would consider typical categories like your mechanical, electrical, architectural, by category, looking at categories such as maybe your programming needs or safety and security, and then obviously by building. And what we're trying to capture here are all-in costs, so not only, using accurate prices to capture what the cost would be today, but also any fees, contingencies, inflationary costs that, that we can try to predict as part of this. And so really trying to come up with that all-in cost for the district.
We saw going through 2020 and the current bond that we're wrapping up, escalation in costs because you couldn't find people to work. Have things pulled back on that as far as cost?
Yeah, I think if you look at, just even kind of in our own lives, what we saw over the last, 5 years is maybe versus what we saw in the last 12 months. And what we're seeing from a construction standpoint, that some of those costs are leveling out. But from the period of the 19 program until now, which, is the last 5 years, construction costs have gone up, in excess of 50, 55% in some cases on certain categories. So really historic inflation there, but we have seen kind of that trend, just like in other goods and services, kind of level off. We're still assuming, somewhat of a worst-case scenario right now to make sure that we try to not make the same mistake twice. So we're carrying approximately 12%, for every dollar right now on these projects to make sure that we protect for, potential inflation in the future. And then we look out over the number of years, and we'll adjust that as you work with your financial consultant to figure out kind of the timeline of that final bond program.
Now, looking at escalation, is it pretty equal as far as labor and material?
Well, material, we saw the spike in material first, and then labor has kind of trailed, but there has been an increase in labor, and maybe even in the business or in the business that you're in, you'll see that salaries now are trying to catch up with that. But definitely materials have increased faster than labor at this point.
Okay, and then the materials that are in scope here, how much of that is material that's from out of this country? The reason I bring that up is, there's a lot of talk about tariffs and an increase in escalation in costs there, so I'm just concerned about what we could see here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've started collecting information and trying to prepare our clients for that now. There's a bit of an unknown to that. We kind of went through that in 2016. There was some of the similar tariffs applied in different areas. Like we saw that in steel, for example, back in 16. We saw like a lot of, joist and deck prices really increase back then. As we approach kind of a final number for a potential bond program, we would adjust based on the final project list. So if there was the potential, let's say steel in this case, if we thought that was an area that would increase, then we would make adjustments to the unit prices there. And we would finalize that as you finalize the program. So as you sit now over the next several months, I would see adjustments in this quite frequently until you finalize your program.
No, even after we finalize, we could still see incremental costs that may end up getting redlined on some of those projects.
Yeah.
Like we've seen with the 19 bond.
Yeah.
We do, our Architects Association does track a billings index, they call it, which is new projects on the boards, how much do we have coming up, which then would ultimately go to construction. That's been slowing. It's trending somewhat downward. So it doesn't mean there's not some growth, but that growth is certainly slowing. It's likely, it's possible, I shouldn't say likely, it's possible that that could continue, especially if construction costs continue to rise. There's less dollars out there, especially from the federal government, that seem to be trending downward as well, that there'll be less dollars out there for construction. So it's possible you could see a little dip as well.
I don't think it'll be anything like we saw in the 2001.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
We got a lot more done than we ever thought we would at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. So we're gonna kind of walk through some of these different, buckets of projects and potential costs. So overall, over the 1 to 10 years, we've identified $93.7 million worth of projects, and we've separated those into 3 categories. This kind of critical needs, 1 to 3 year, near needs, 4 to 6, and future 7 to 10. As we go through this, there is some arbitrariness to like what category fits in, because some things may be aesthetic. There are some things that, hey, this is reaching the end of its useful life, need to be replaced. But we've done our best working with the district to try to categorize those projects. And we're gonna look at those by scope. So we'll look at roofing, mechanical, electrical, architectural, site work, and technology. We have $8.9 million in roofing projects identified, which would include the full replacement of Greenwood, Harmon, and the shingles here at Wheat. About 75% of the high school and about 48% of Jefferson. The other 25, let's say of the high school, for example, has been replaced sooner than certain sections, kind of the same at Jefferson. It should be noted that in the recent program that Princeton, Ardmore, and Jefferson received, significant improvements.
When we moved into this building, wasn't a new roof put on this building at that time?
A portion of it. So there's only enough money to do the parts you could see. So the parts that are pitching down on the outside, the parts on the inside did not get replaced. The parts on the outside were seeing the most damage and wear. So I'd say about half of it was done. And so when you do half, you put on the same shingle that you had, which was not a super premium shingle. So here, the replacement would include all of it and upgrade the shingle at that time.
Mechanical, and this is the largest portion of the critical needs, and if you look at the numbers here, the unit ventilator replacement is the biggest portion of that. Those are the classroom units. There's about 190 of those classrooms district-wide, and those are about 20-plus years old. So, what we typically see in that equipment is that 20-year range. I know the district has already started replacing some key components. This, serves a large footprint of the district, and has been identified as the most critical need. We also have included in there the Wheat mechanical renovations, which is this building. Similarly to the classroom unit ventilators, you have like this, what we call DX cooling, so you have compressors and condensers. And just like the ones you have at your house, those have a lifespan as well, and this is, reaching that critical point.
Were the ventilators that you're referencing some of the things that we didn't get to do from the last bond? Because I know there were some things that we couldn't address because our costs were coming on so much higher.
The classroom unit ventilators would have been kind of in this time period, I think, regardless of the previous bond program.
Okay.
They were not on the list except for at the high school. So
Okay.
the elementary schools were slated in the last bond to get replaced. So.
Okay, thank you.
There is an electrical component to that mechanical, so there are some electrical dollars for that replacement. There's also some architectural components that would need to be required. So you can think of like the equipment in this room that you might have to, replace ceilings or, repair drywall as you kind of access parts of that equipment. So there's architectural dollars included, as well as casework replacement. So when the classroom unit ventilator, which sits on that outside wall of the classroom, has casework next to it. depending on the final design, size of the equipment, we have to account for some of those architectural changes that would be required for that work. And then also include that number, which is a large portion of it, would be the interior renovations of this building to convert it to pre-K. So as the district, starts to weigh some of those options with the pre-K programming, we've included those costs in this assessment as well. Site work, really just two projects here. We've got the replacing the tennis courts and the high school west parking lot. We've included post-tension concrete for the tennis courts. That would be a little more expensive, but a longer-term solution. The asphalt tennis courts just don't quite have the lifespan, and there's some more risk with those. So, trying to account for, a better detail there to make sure that those tennis courts last. And then the high school parking lot, we're including a full depth replacement at this point.
So when you're talking tennis courts, are you talking about replacing everything, including all the fencing around there as well?
Correct. That's what we have included in the program right now as a budget.
Fencing needs to be updated.
The fencing being in the existing asphalt, you'd have to remove that fencing to do some of the work we're talking about. And when you start handling some of those things, you end up spending more money in some cases for that. And it is noted that at the elementary schools, the district did make significant investments in the parking lots at the elementary. So the elementaries, for the most part, are in good or new shape right now. So. And then we'll talk a little bit about the critical needs and technology, Scott.
Yeah, so the digital antenna system, what that is there's two pieces to that. One is the public safety side, that's for your first responders and the radio signals to have the best coverage possible throughout your facility. And the more expensive DAS, as they call it, is the cellular DAS. So that would improve cellular coverage in your buildings. That is the lion's share, about 2.6 million of that 3.5 million is to make your cell phones work better. The system for the public safety would be closer to about $900,000 for estimated now. The digital antenna for the cellular would be all three of the major carriers, which costs the price to go up.
Yeah, I'd like to see more information on that.
Absolutely. In addition, our interior fiber optic cable that ties our network together, that is probably 30-plus years old. We're looking to update that. That's something that we had removed from the previous bond. The PA speakers, that's just an allotment as we work through the different areas and the areas of work where we might have to replace or augment the speakers that are there. We had a full PA upgrade throughout the district in the last bond. The network switches, this is a life cycle thing. These last a certain amount of time, and then the technology either expands, price drops, and hopefully, and we update our speeds. So that continues to be a thing that as we go on, our network infrastructure, the switches, the wireless, all needs to continue to keep up with the latest technologies.
Didn't we just upgrade a lot of the infrastructure, switchgear?
2020.
We just did,
Yeah.
that was relatively new.
2020.
So it's all useless now?
No, we're just saying, so you add another 5 years to that, you're 10 years in.
Life cycles.
The likelihood of you having to replace those.
You will find that the current gear you have may have been purchased on the midpoint or near the end of the term life cycle of the gear that, say, a Cisco would support. They would support or sell Model A through 2020. They'll support it for 7 years. Well, if we're going to install that Model A again, continuing, it's only going to be supported for 2 more years, then you fall into other warranty type things, and it gets real ugly. So, trying to stay as current as possible with technology is important.
So we always leverage those as long as those are useful and working on the job we're needing to do. So we're not looking to do that for replacement's sake. When it makes sense, but the likelihood in the next 5 years, which is 10 years from the install, is on. Also, the UPSs, those are the power supply, just gives us clean power to those switches. Those have a shorter life cycle as well. And then we continue our file servers, our application servers, our storage networks, all continue to need to be upgraded. They need to be under warranty, and we need to maintain service contracts on those so that we have 100% uptime. In addition, we still have printers, copiers, such devices that run through their cycles, and then also looking at distance learning and digital media programs that are in the district that we
campus by building, which this kind of tracks square footage, which would be, which would be expected. But I think it also reflects in the last program that a lot of the money was invested in elementary schools with the additions and renovations there. Looking at the near needs, we'll look at infrastructure, a safety and security category, and some potential projects there, some programming improvements, technology again, and then, the potential for some furniture investments.
Why would safety and security not be a critical?
It very well could be, depending on what the district prioritizes. We've put it in there just based on identifying some of the components based around what they would go in, so like glass, for example. So if we're going to replace some doors and hardware, potentially in the near needs, you would replace the glass at that time. But it could certainly move to a critical need if required. So in the infrastructure category, ceilings, lights. So ceilings, there's some ceilings that, for aesthetic reasons have been in for a long time, could need to be replaced. Lighting replacement, moving from, moving towards, LED throughout the district. So we've captured some costs there. Flooring and hardware, there was some work done in the 8 program. So we've included some allowances to kind of attack some select areas, or with the doors and hardware, maybe areas of high use. So we've got some dollars included for that. Rooftop units and energy recovery units, again, part of those mechanical systems. These would just kind of fall into that later category because of the critical need with the flashing need of ventilators. Electrical panel replacements. The electrical engineer reviewed the site and looked at the age of some of that equipment and, started identifying some costs for some of the older equipment. Site fencing. Classroom bathroom remodels. Some of the classroom bathrooms at the elementary level are original, so looking at maybe what it would take to upgrade those areas. And then Greenwood, Princeton, and Jefferson have some select lots that would be kind of up in that 3 to 6 year period.
When you're talking electrical panels, is there a life cycle for those?
Yeah, there's a life cycle for them, and you start looking at like kind of some of the replacement parts for it, where if you start having trouble with some of that, we gathered that through the state audit and working with the electrical engineer to identify those that are the oldest.
There's not many, but they looked at every one and identified a few select ones.
Okay, because I know we went through extensive electric panel updates when we did all the HVAC throughout the district, and there was a lot of money spent then, and that was, 22 years ago, and I would think that a panel would last longer than 22 years.
These are some of the old legacy panels that just haven't been.
Okay.
Yeah, some of our panels have like the push button
Oh, the old
breakers versus the trip one, so, and honestly, we need more power in some areas that if the light is here, it might feed all the way down the hallway at the high school instead of right outside where it belongs, so.
All those push button ones you're talking about, the Smithsonian might be looking for something like that.
Safety and security, we've got replacing some select interior and exterior glazing with impact resistant, and again, try to establish what a budget for that could be. And, that would be a district decision to determine, kind of location of that. Looked at rekeying buildings, just, looking at it from a safety and security lens. Is now the time to rekey the buildings to, kind of limit access or partition off certain areas. So that could be an initiative that the district looks at. And then reconfiguring the high school office. The high school staff had expressed some desire to put, certain people in certain places as you come into the building, so that kind of the first person you approach would be like the resource officer. So moving some of those offices around to improve that. I don't know if there's anything, Sean, you want to add to that?
With what the buildings have done already, we've, limiting people access for, unless you have but more importantly, if someone were to find their way into the building, we would look at, Detective Jockman had said it would be nice if our SRO was, instead of being back by the counselors, up more towards the front where people come in. That way, if there's any type of commotion or ruckus, the resource officer could respond quicker because they could step out and kind of hear and see what was going on. So there's kind of a vision of what we've talked about potentially doing to keep just the calmness of the office where it needs to be.
When we're talking rekeying, are we talking about physical keys, or are we talking about the proximity type cards?
It would be the keys.
Physical keys, in
Because
this
right now
case.
we have a Yale high-security key system, and the key blanks are extremely expensive. When our locksmith runs out, I have to write a letter to Yale to send to them to say, by the way, they can buy 100 key blanks, and they're a double-cut key, so it's very expensive when they, and it doesn't happen often, but it's quite toilsome to.
They don't age out like digital ones.
No,
No.
and the other thing, we've had some internal discussion, the idea of, if I'm in the hallway and I only have one key to my classroom, but there is some sort of an incident where I have to get into a classroom to take cover, and I don't have a key to that room, there's the mindset that has shifted is, do you have one key that can get a teacher or someone into every space? And that's a district decision. We haven't teased that out, but these are just kind of a, 30,000
High level.
view of just, hey, let's tease this out, let's see what, it may not come to it, but we might say, yeah, that might be something we want to investigate.
And one of the things we've talked about too is the hard keys were in place before we had fob, like we are now. So a lot of people have keys out there that right now, we probably would not choose to have keys because they have fob access. So just continuing to tighten down what we already have in place now as we're moving forward with our technology.
And the district has invested significantly over the last couple of programs on the technology side of things, so access control, video surveillance, the emergency alert system that was done kind of initially in the 19 program and then expanded here recently, so those have already been addressed.
As we've talked about before, and in my eyes, speaking for myself, security is a priority here. It's ultimately, because everybody sends their children here expecting us to be in a safe and secure environment, so that's very important, so thank you.
And as I agree with what Dan is saying, and as we're moving on, if there's any additional recommendations that are appropriate, I'm very interested.
Program improvement, so, working with administration, just identifying some areas within the buildings that would need some renovations to accommodate new or existing programs. We've got some areas identified here, at the high school and middle school where some of those renovations could take place. Technology again?
So as we do the interior modifications and that, there'll be some network cabling, and that continues to support all of our network devices. The card readers at some point will need to be upgraded to the newer technologies. Our cameras now are new. We've got excellent storage. We're caught up to date. Again, as you look out, 6 years, the likelihood that some of this stuff's going to start to fail or need to be replaced, we have some sort of allowance in there to be able to replace that. Not looking to replace everything in 6 years, by no means. But the interactive panels, as you see over here, that are in all of our classrooms, those also have 5-year warranty. And after that, technology ages and things start to work, things start to fail, and you need to replace those. So that's kind of our classroom technology will need to be refreshed in the next 6 years.
So where are we sitting at now is a standard Cat 5e and the networking cable piece?
6A, 6 and 6A.
Most of the buildings are 6 and
Oh,
6A
we
now?
have 5, I'm sorry, we didn't use what we have. We have 5E, we have 6, and we have 6A.
Okay, now you're looking at replacing a lot of the 5es to get them up to
The 5E
the,
would probably be the thing to go, and also the wireless, as that technology advances, how much needs to be wired. Because of the flexibility of our display, which can be rolled anywhere around the room, that wireless connectivity is really an advantage. So I can see us maybe replacing cable, but maybe less cable needs to be in classrooms in certain areas.
Okay.
So kind of a select replacement. And as well, it's just kind of an ongoing maintenance type of thing. The other thing is, we are refreshing all of our laptops, desktops, Chromebooks, all of that is being refreshed and will be refreshed this current bond. But in the next 6 years, we're going to need to do it all over again. The telephone handsets were replaced as well in this bond. That's just an allowance for if we lose a handset, we lose additional spaces, those types of things. We have some dollars set aside to cover those expenses. And the microphones are in the auditorium that happen to be on my list.
And then this is really just a a budget to try to understand maybe what, what the potential needs could be for furniture throughout the district. So we've just essentially counted up the number of classrooms times unit price to say, okay, if you were to replace the classroom furniture, what would that cost? And so this could end up being, a wide range of options, but just so the board can understand, what that could look like here in the future.
And in the 19 bond, we had a placeholder to replace every piece of furniture district-wide, and we pared that down significantly because we said, well, we don't need to replace every piece of furniture. So like Daryl said, that's just kind of the placeholder to say, here's our best guess at this, and it's most likely going to be less than that because we've replaced furniture when it breaks and we need pieces, kind of like we've done with some of our unit ventilators. When they go down, we have to fix them.
And then looking at future needs, just a couple categories here, infrastructure and technology. On the infrastructure side, we just wanted to capture that pre-K addition at Wheat, that's been discussed here at the board level in previous board meetings, just showing that if you do the renovations, let's say, as a critical need at some point in the future, the scope of the classrooms here could expand. And so we wanted to include some costs for the board to understand what that would be. And then, really just an ongoing.
Kind of the same type of items you see as we get into that 7 to 10 or 6 to 10 year. Some of the same items. Again, you're looking forward to replacements, and at that point, our telephone system will be, the end of that 10-year cycle would be about 15 years old, which is not excessively expensive or old compared to the older systems, but it's like everything else in your household, everything that's newer doesn't last quite as long as it used to. We should be able to certainly get the 15 to 20 years out of that system, but I want to make sure that at that point that we have those dollars at least accounted for, that if it doesn't hit then, it will be coming up at some point after that.
On your infrastructure pieces, Cisco gear or network gear, whether it's Cisco or Palo Alto or whatever, and there's your servers as well, vSANs, physical servers, et cetera. Have we looked at lease options for those things? So when the life cycle comes, we just get out of that lease and move on with the next?
The only problem with the lease side of it is we can't use the bond dollars to lease.
Okay.
So we have done that with the copiers, multifunction printers. We've leased a portion of that fleet to kind of keep some of that in the operational and be able to keep those machines up to date. And then we've also used some bond dollars to buy some and leverage those as well. So we've got kind of a mix of both.
We're about half and half these, half all.
Okay.
And then just looking at this from some different angles here, again, just looking at scope, you can see we talked, kind of somewhat significantly about the mechanical piece, right? That's a big portion of what you have, as well as architectural and roofs kind of being some of those bigger categories, along with those just kind of ongoing technology components. And then by building, again, somewhat mirroring what we looked at just in the critical needs, which is, probably a function somewhat of square footage, but also, a function of the investments made in the last bond program being at the elementary schools where you see the high school and Jefferson receiving, larger dollar amounts. And then, so moving on to what kind of those next steps would be is, again, gathering that board input and working through this prioritization process. To try to, as we move forward here in the process, to be prepared for what may be a November election. Questions?
I really have nothing further because I've been asking them all along. Anybody else?
So I'm assuming at the next step, when the Building and Site Committee meets, we'll have more of a breakdown of the categories
The
and.
subcommittee can go through the 68-page version
Yeah.
of the 3-4-page version you saw
Yeah.
summarized.
So
That goes into,
I would love to get that as sooner than later.
yeah, yep.
Thank you.
Fire up that MFU and start printing. All right, anything else? Any questions, comments from the board?
Thank you for
Anything
all
else?
your hard work, and I look forward to working with everyone to move forward to figure out what we want to do next.
Yes, thank you for coming out this evening in this beautiful weather and spending some time with us.
Thank you, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item H, the 2025-2026 School of Choice discussion.
As is true every February, we are offering the board the opportunity to consider the school of choice question. We have been open since 2003 and consistently stayed in Macomb County only. If the board desires to change that and not have us open for school of choice, you'd need to vote on that. Otherwise, we can just move forward as we have been for the last so many years.
Stay the course.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to personnel, item A, changes in personnel.
Tonight, administration is bringing forward the following changes in personnel since the last presentation to the Board of Education on January 7th. New hires, Ashley Shaner, Greenwood Elementary School paraprofessional, Candace Schuver, Ardmore Elementary School paraprofessional, Alicia Wenterine, Wheat Preschool Co-op, Marley Calderon, Wheat Preschool Co-op, Marie Walls, Lakeview Public Schools Data Specialist, Noah Woods, Princeton Elementary School paraprofessional, After School High School Credit Recovery, Michael Bingy, Julie Meyer, Shane Smith, Dan Janey, James Rector. Resignations, Jennifer DiMercurio, teacher, Christopher Fabry, Lakeview High School Special Education teacher. Retirements with regrets at the end of this school year, Joanne Dennison, Jefferson Middle School social worker. Jefferson Middle School 8th grade Washington trip, Michelle Bush and Julie Stevens as bus supervisors and trip chaperones. Unpaid childcare leaves for the 25-26 school year, Colette Barth, Natalie Dempsey, and Jenna Ritter. Spring Sports Athletic Coordinator, John Carr. And Schedule B, returning coaches and sponsors as listed.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the changes in personnel as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Have we any of the new hires here this evening?
We do not.
I remembered again.
No, not tonight.
All right, thank you. Item B, exempt contract extensions.
Tonight, administration brings forward a recommendation to extend the contracts of Lakeview's exempt central office employees. All of the employees have either completed their initial contract probationary period or have continued to demonstrate successful completion of their job responsibilities to qualify them for extended contract consideration. This recommendation includes the following positions: one-year contract extensions for technology specialist Dylan McNamara, auditorium manager Warren Wilson, initial expanded contract extensions for Eric Lynn, Megan Myers, Melissa McMurdy, and Jacqueline Kokowski, and one-year extensions of the current contracts for myself, Sean Zaborowski, Laura Woods, Devin DePero, Anthony Snezic, Jessica Panicella, Mark Mullins, Sandra Maloney, Alyssa Calderon, Lorraine Sherry, Nate Connor, and Tammy Smith.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the extension of the exempt central office administrative employees' contracts as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Bond implementation, item A, classroom audio video systems, CAV project phase 3 recommendation.
As a result of community support through the 2019 bond, Lakeview school buildings are having significant technological improvements made. One such project is for the technology and audio-video systems for classrooms throughout the district. This project includes a 75-inch 4K interactive flat panels, displays, mounts, portable carts, and software, all of which include a 5-year warranty. Wright and Hunter assisted administration as our technology consultant on the project. They prepared the request for bid, facilitated advertising, and assisted administration with public bid openings. Bids were reviewed for compliance and completeness in spring of 2021. The bid included 2 original phases of the project, with Phase 1 being the purchase of 8 devices for the 8 additional classrooms constructed at Jefferson Middle School. Phase 2 of the project included the purchase and deployment of devices for the existing traditional classrooms throughout the district, which was approximately 170 classrooms. Phase 3 of the project is for the purchase and deployment of devices for ancillary classrooms and instructional spaces throughout the district, such as smaller special education classrooms and instructional support spaces. The classroom audio-video systems project was awarded to Intercomp TSG in the spring of 2021. Phases 1 and 2 of the project have already been completed, and Intercomp TSG has agreed to hold to their per-unit pricing for Phase 3 of the project. Therefore, administration is asking for approval from the board to move forward with Phase 3 of the project with the purchase of an additional 15 classroom audiovisual systems through Intercomp TSG to be deployed throughout the district as a change order in the amount of $49,155. Scott Bruni is here this evening to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of an additional 15 classroom audiovisual system through Intercomp TSG in the amount of $49,155.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Discussion on the motion.
Just a 5-year warranty? I mean, it's just a 5-year warranty on it?
5-year warranty. Standard across the industry. Yep.
Out it goes. Okay.
Oh, no, it doesn't mean it's gonna die.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item E, bid package number 11, Weed Educational Campus Digital Sign Replacement Change Order.
I apologize for you guys having to listen to my voice for the next 6 items, so bear with me. Tonight is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following change order related to replacement of the electronic monument sign at the Weed Educational Campus. In 2024, the existing digital sign at Wheat began to experience technical issues. Ultimately, the ability to repair the sign became problematic due to the age of the sign and the lack of parts to effectively keep it in proper working order. The sign was installed during the summer of 2015, and since that time, the technology used for digital signage has evolved from a hardwired system to one that is cloud-based. Administration directed Barton Mallow Builders and Partners in Architecture to begin the process to develop plans to replace the current sign. We directed the base of design to be similar to the elementary signs recently installed. PIA and Barton Mallow Builders worked to get a plan in place to get the project done at the most cost-effective method. Ultimately, DeHunt Electric, the electrical contractor for bid package 11, submitted a price to handle the removal and replacement of the signage as the general contractor for the project in the amount of $74,975. Both Barton Mallow and PIA reviewed the costs and found all pricing to be appropriate for the additional scope of work, and this pricing is in line with the elementary signs that were previously bid. Therefore, administration recommends approval of increase in contract through change order to DeHunt Electric in the amount of $74,975 to remove and replace the Wheat Educational Campus electronic sign.
Mr. President, I recommend that the Board of Education approve the change order and contract increase to DeHunt Electric in the amount of $74,975 for the digital sign replacement at the Wheat Educational Campus as presented.
I'll support it.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Martin, support by Mr. Asha. $75K for that sign?
It's to remove all the current stuff, take all it away, and install the new one, to make it look like exactly what we have at the other buildings.
Wow.
What's the turnaround on it?
I'm not sure turnaround time for these signs, once we get it approved.
As far as lead time?
Yeah.
We can look into that.
Yeah, we went to spring, the concrete work and, trenching.
We have to look into that. I'm not sure what the lead time is at the moment.
Yeah, a lot of that work would happen at the,
Let's get one of those little, those push the letters in for now, out front,
Does it not work at all?
Not at all. Yeah, it came on a couple weeks ago, and it had the welcome back to school 2024, 25, or 25, whatever, and then it went out again.
So power already exists to that sign. Is that adequate, or are we going to have to retrench and put a new power to that sign?
There's some minor electrical work, but I believe the power that's there is adequate.
Okay.
The cost is in each base, each sign, each is 25,000. Each digital base is 25, so that's really where the majority of the cost is.
I think they included trenching and everything there, it looks like. Installation of 12 Gs.
I apologize, I can answer for you. Vicki, she was what you know.
Well, I just want to say, yeah, and then we gotta retrench, and it's another 30, 40
Nope,
grand.
that- We evaluated the power to know if there was enough, and if we needed more, it's in there.
So do we need two signs?
Yeah, facing Harper. Northbound and southbound.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So the people coming down Cedar can see it?
No, like, so it faces.
Two sides on all of our other ones, right?
It does.
We've got two sides on all the other.
As you're driving.
no, they're talking parallel to Harper. But then you would.
They all have two
40 miles
sides,
an
yeah.
hour, you wouldn't be able to see anything.
You'll have accidents. That'll keep Officer Dave busy then, right, in accidents.
Yeah, the people across Harper will be able to read it all day long,
Run it
but,
out to,
Yeah,
Sponsorship?
yeah,
Scrolling advertising.
yeah. We can get sponsors.
Any other comments? We're getting some mileage out of this one.
Well,
All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item C, bid pack number 9, change order, piping changes at Lakeview High School boiler room.
This evening is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following change order related to replacement of undersized piping related to boiler installation at Lakeview High School. In February 2024, administration was notified by Bart Mallow Builders that the existing piping in the boiler room at LHS was not sufficient to support the new equipment being installed. This required getting both PIA and their engineering firm, Peter Basso Associates, to develop a solution and submitting that to Contrast Mechanical, who was the mechanical contractor for bid pack 9. Administration directed Barton Mallow to get pricing from Contrast to correct the undersized piping. Contrast submitted pricing that was reviewed by administration, PBA, PIA, and Barton Mallow, and all found pricing to be appropriate for the additional scope of work. Therefore, administration recommends approval of increase in contract through change order to Contrast Mechanical in the amount of $56,665.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the change order and contract increase to Gemstone Painting. I got the wrong one? Oh, wrong one, sorry.
see,
There it is. Okay. I move that the Board of Education approve the change order and contract increase to Contrast Mechanical in the amount of $56,665 for piping replacement at Lakeview High School boiler room as presented.
Support us.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Mr. Asha. Discussion on the motion.
so in general, when you look at all the items under 6 and then in 7, I'm assuming that like these costs are coming from the set aside that we nominated to go into the building improvement package, or is there monies left in the bond, or like, I was just thinking, because like if you had all these items together and you take away the 176 that's presented in G, including the antivirus software, it comes to about $219,000. So I just wanted to ask the general question, you know.
Where's it coming from? Right?
Yeah, and are we good? And I'm assuming we do because we set aside some money, but I just thought it was worth bringing up.
Yeah, I mean,
we're, I think if you said what contracts are outstanding, what things, because there's a host of things from
Sure.
2-3 years ago that still aren't closed out
Right.
because we've been holding money for, punch list things and whatnot. But are we in a situation where we are going to approve them and not be able to pay for them? No.
Okay, all right. I just thought I'd just ask the general question.
Also,
you.
will this alleviate the problems at the high school with the sludge in the pipes? And does this include like a flush of the system?
no, they have, they've been coming out once every couple of 3 weeks and helping to give us another flush in the system. So they're working with William Walter, Contrast Mechanical is. So William Walter will be here, they'll help them. We aren't seeing as many of the blockages that we saw the first time we turned it on and we had everything blocked 100%. So we've got some work that they're continually doing to come out to give these things a flush and
While
Get
the
it.
system's down and they're doing that job, can they back flush the system and possibly clean everything out so we don't have those problems in the future?
I don't know about back flushing it, but they
I think that,
Yeah.
just sounds like the commitment that we have with the
Yeah.
contractor is that they're going to come out and do this repeatedly until we come out and there's nothing to clean anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Once you come out and clean the filters, and every time you do that, it becomes less and less and less. And we're gonna continue to do so until you empty that filter and it looks like you did the last time you cleaned it. So, we've been, and it's kind of been a joint effort with some of the existing piping versus some of the new piping. And we've worked with Sean and the contractor we have under contract, as well as your maintenance contractor, to make sure that we continue to do that until we don't see that anymore. That's not to say that at some point in the future, there's some kind of faraway location in the building that something could come back, but we're gonna keep checking it to minimize any disruptions in the system. And it's really been a joint effort working with Sean and the districts.
How did we get here? Is it due to a maintenance issue over the years?
I think it's just the how long that piping's been in the system. I mean, it's an older building, right? So like, even when we go in and do mechanical renovations, you don't replace the mains, you might replace some of the branches. And so, you've got original mains in there. And so just over time, some of that builds up. And then when you shut a system down and everything kind of settles and stops, and then you kick it back up again, you can dislodge some of that stuff, and that's what we've seen. And so unfortunately, it kind of hit us all at once, and we had that issue, where we had some of the safety tripping. Thankfully, that's what they're there for, to, not harm any of the equipment. And then we just worked with Sean to make sure we had a plan in place, continuously look at it until we get to a point where we feel comfortable that the filters that are there will just do what they're supposed to do like they would on a normal basis. Because you would have some just kind of routine maintenance that you would have to do along the way. So we've seen it get much better over time here.
that's more delicate than I would have put it, but I agree.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the labor on here, 176 hours. I'm assuming that's like 4 people and.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, multiple people.
We had actually a meeting today for about an hour and a half, Jade, with PBA, PIA, and they were still reviewing this cost. PBA is going to go back to them to beat them up a little bit more, but this would be almost a not-to-exceed price. They might say, hey, yeah, we were going to knock off $5,000 or $6,000, right? They might come back and after digging a little bit deeper, and that's what PBA and PIA is there for on our behalf, because PBA is like, well, wait a minute, they asked the same question. 4 guys, 176 hours to put piping, so they've asked those questions. So we are bringing this tonight, but we are still having them review it even further. Because PBA, who is the mechanical, firm, they're like, something doesn't add up right here. Now, part of this also, this is, a little bit longer than we'd like to have these in front of you from February of '24. It's February of '25. So they heard that loud and clear from me on the meeting today, that we have these things that are hanging out for a year. The work's already completed. But Jade is catching up on all of that, where his previous person was falling down a little bit, so.
And we've had several meetings with the contractor and have several iterations of this pricing to make sure that we get it accurate. So it's not the, we don't take it at face value. So if it takes time to do that, we'll, they can wait for it until we're satisfied that it's the accurate price.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item D, bid pack number 11, Lakeview High School painting change order.
Tonight, administration is recommending a change order to Gemstone Painting for miscellaneous painting in various locations at Lakeview High School. After bid submittals were received for bid package number 11, some value engineering was done to look at an alternate leading to a spray-on acoustical material on the ceiling of the LHS pool. While the spray-on acoustical was accepted, there were several other areas that would require painting, which was not captured in the original bid specification and award. Administration directed PIA and Barton Mallow to get pricing from two painting contractors in bid package 11. Gemstone Painting provided the lowest bid and was reviewed by administration, Barton Mallow, and Partners in Architecture. All found the pricing to be appropriate for the scope of work. Therefore, it is recommended that the board approve change order and contract increase to Gemstone Painting in the amount of $53,795.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the change order and contract to increase to Gemstone Paintings for the work at Lakeview High School in the amount of $53,795.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Taylor, support by Ms. Martin. Discussion on the motion.
What was the other quote? Just check.
Jay, do you know that off the top of
Those
your
are
head?
roughly like $2 or $3 grand higher. So within the same delta areas. So they're both looking at the numbers about the same.
Any other comments?
It says like a longevity on this paint, right?
Yeah.
And, it's going into.
Yeah, he's going to use a little bit
Okay.
more durable paint for the air quality that is in swimming pools.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. On to item E, Lakeview High School Furniture Award Recommendation.
All right, we're halfway there. This evening is recommended that the Board of Education consider a bid recommendation related to furniture for the new building addition at Lakeview High School. Bids were distributed and vendors solicited as policy and law requires beginning back in December. Administration Partners in Architecture reviewed the bid submittals and are recommending Kruger International, KI, for award. KI has been a vendor on multiple furniture bids throughout the bond program and has met all requirements for furniture and delivery when they have been awarded furniture bids. Therefore, administration recommends award of bid to KI for furniture at Lakeview High School in the amount of $28,906.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve award of the bid Kruger International for furniture at Lakeview High School addition in the amount of $28,906.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Taylor, support by Ms. Martin. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item F, bid pack number 10, change order, Lakeview High School Athletic Field Site Work.
This evening, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following change orders related to additional site work and electrical pathway directional boring at the Lakeview High School Athletic Field. During the work at the LHS field, there were change orders requested of two contractors on this bid package, Cordis Brothers, who is a site work contractor, and DeHunt Electric. Administration was notified by Barton Mallow Builders that there were items, which would need to be addressed during the site work at the Lakeview High School field. And Administration directed Bart Mallow to get pricing from DeHunt and Cordes Brothers for this work. DeHunt was asked to provide pricing for directional boring and pathways for added IT infrastructure to the athletic field, and Cordes was requested to provide pricing for two separate items. First was to address required utility changes, and the second was for additional concrete and drainage at the foot of the new bleachers. DeHunt submitted pricing that was reviewed by Administration, PIA, and Barton Mallow. Cordes submitted pricing for their items, which were reviewed by Administration, Spalding DeDecker, the civil engineer, PIA, and Barton Mallow. They found all pricing to be appropriate for the additional scope of work. Therefore, Administration recommends approval of increase in contract through change order in the following amounts: DeHunt Electric at $25,524 and Cordes Brothers $66,074.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the change order and contract increase to DeHunt Electric in the amount of $25,524 for the directional boring, and Cordes Brothers in the amount of $66,074 for utility changes and additional concrete and drainage at the Lakeview High School athletic field as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. I do have a couple questions. With this change order, I think we had a couple misses here. One being, why are we looking at doing additional lighting work? Was that missed in the original plan? And then secondly, the drainage at the bleachers, that was brought up when they were building that and put the pad down. I saw the water in there last summer and I brought it up, the sitting water. Is that what we're talking about? Because it was told to us at the table here that drainage would be adequate once the athletic complex was finished. And by my read here, it seems like there's a couple of big misses. Lighting was one piece, electrical pathway, and the second one is this drainage.
It's low voltage. The DeHunt was low voltage.
It's still lighting. Why wasn't it done when the work was done a year ago?
So there would have been low voltage pathways for some of the electrical systems out there, so the sound systems, those types of things would be included in that as well.
Getting from the concessions building over to the press box. So, it was additional scope that wasn't captured in the original document, for sure. There was a couple additional pathways for the score timers, the countdown timers at each end of the football field. Those were added, weren't in the original scope.
There was also a couple of existing pathways that were crushed that were not able to be used, that were in the ground.
Or put in back when the original field was put in.
Fishing through there.
So the drainage was to add additional trench drainage based on how the new slab for the bleachers came out. So it was just a better understanding of what the slab needed to look like and how it needed to drain from the bleacher companies. So again, it wasn't redoing something necessarily, it's adding additional drainage to address that slab. So there could have been more of that captured in an allowance, but it was something that needed to be coordinated later. We should have had an allowance in there to cover that, not knowing exactly how that was going to work out. So I can get more details for you on that. I don't have all the details.
I mean, what's disappointing here is that this was brought up before the bleachers that went up. When the slab of concrete was there, we got a heavy rain, that water was just sitting there. And we were told at this table that that would be addressed and taken care of before that project was done. And here we are looking at another $66,000.
Well, the 66 isn't just for drainage. There's a number of other items related to I think all of Cordes's work around the field here and there. It wasn't all just the drainage.
And when are we gonna have to repair once a skid steer and excavator and a tool truck and dozer and a loader are out on our track again?
So these are items that haven't been done yet for clarification. So this is drainage over at the existing ticket booth, like the concession stand at the southeast. So the drainage that was done underneath the bleachers, I'm gonna dive in with everybody, but that was already taken care of. So this is separate entity. Over where the patios are over there, there's bad drainage right there, and that was outside of the footprint of the whole track system itself.
So this is additional work.
Yeah, this is above and beyond, so this is stuff that we haven't got to yet. These are sidewalks that are in that area to get that
'Cause we knew we had standing water on the old bleachers, on the east side of the old bleachers for a very long time.
Yeah.
And my impression was that all that was going to be done and handled,
That,
and apparently it hasn't been, so here we have a change order.
that area by the bleachers that we discussed at the board meeting was included in the documents. What Jade is describing is new work, which would be what, on the east side by the,
Very
with
east
the
corner where you're gonna come in with the new ticket.
new ticket booth.
Yeah, on the east, the new ticket booth.
Right on the back of this parking lot.
Yeah.
The board.
That's what I'm talking about, right? Between the concession stands and the old bleachers, there's that large grassy area, which was a pool when it rained heavily. And that's what we're talking about with drainage, correct, in that area? And that wasn't then addressed last summer when they were tearing up everything.
So the area that we discussed at the last board meeting, that when I mentioned that area was being taken care of, I was referring to the area that would be to the west of the bleachers that are on the north side of the home bleachers. So that area at that time was holding water because we hadn't finished the installation of the storm structures there. That was kind of the last piece that went in. So that may have been a misunderstanding at that time. That was the last piece that went in. That area now is being handled. This area we're talking about is the area which you're describing, which is the east side, which wasn't part of the original scope. And now that we're adding that ticket booth there, it would be addressed at that time.
Well, I motion we table this, and I'm motioning that we table this with a finer detail of exactly what this is, because I think we're talking about two separate things right now, and I'm getting confused. With a picture, I like pictures, maybe? Maybe a nice picture, but I would need a second.
Yeah, we can identify a plan and show you what was in the original plan. No problem.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second on this?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Asia, support by Ms. Taylor to table. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, and the table will be till the next meeting?
Yes, the next meeting.
The sooner we get something more, we can look at it too.
Thank you. Moving on, item G, bid pack number 11, change order, Lakeview High School deduct.
Tonight, administration is recommending several deduct change orders to multiple contractors for work at Lakeview High School. These deducts were identified through the project primary window replacement that was not needed and several entry errors that were modified from the original scope. After bid submittals were received for bid package 11, Value Engineering was engaged by administration Barton Mallow and Partners in Architecture to look at potential cost reductions for work to be completed within this package. These alternatives were examined because the overall cost concerns within several of the last three bid packs under the 2019 bond. After discussion, administration directed Barton Mallow and Partners in Architecture to seek quotes from the contractors who would be impacted by this reduction in scope. The impacted contractors submitted cost reductions related to the area for their individual contracts. These deduct change orders were reviewed by administration, Barton Mallow, and PIA, and found all pricing to be appropriate for the reduction in scope of work. Therefore, it is recommended that the board approve deduct change orders and contract decrease to the following contractors for a total savings of $176,819. Alcor, $162,852. Shoreview Electric, $5,584. Lapeer Steel, $2,998. And Masonry Solutions Midwest, $3,485.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the deduct charge orders and contract decrease to the following contractors: Alcor Incorporated for $162,852, Shoreview Electric for $5,584, Lapeer Steel Incorporated for $2,998, and Masonry Solutions Midwest for $3,485, for a total savings of $176,819.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Discussion on the motion.
It's a pleasure to make a motion for getting some money back and not having to pay it out.
Yep. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to business, antivirus software recommendation.
Tonight, administration is bringing forward a recommendation to upgrade the antivirus solution for all of the district's equipment that utilizes a Windows operating system. This includes district servers, staff laptops, and student computer labs. Student Chromebooks are already covered for antivirus in a similar way through a separate contract. This recommendation is resulting from the district's need to better protect ourselves from data breaches and ransomware attacks. Upgrading to a more robust antivirus solution will better protect the district and minimize potential data threats going forward. Annual licensing for the recommended product will be paid out of the general fund as a purchase service expense. The 3-year licensing cost to cover the antivirus software and management platform for 14 servers and 610 workstations is $40,962.62. This cost will be paid in equal increments each year of the 3-year license. Administration is recommending the purchase of the 3 years of antivirus licensing from Intercomp TSG in the amount of $40,962.62, or approximately $13,654 per year.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the administration to move forward with the purchase of 3 years of antivirus licenses from the Intercorp TSG in the amount of $40,962.62.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Taylor, support by Mr. Bear. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we have 5 student expulsion, long-term suspension hearings. What we're going to do is we're going to take the roll call votes real quick for each of the 5. After those votes are done, we will then go into recess and then come back where I'll ask the first one to be in the boardroom here, would be the student and legal guardians. So the first one, item A, under other, request for closed session, student expulsion, long-term suspension recommendation 2024-2025 BC.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve their request for closed session to discuss Step 9, long-term suspension, expulsion, discipline recommendations for student 2024-2025 BC.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Martin, yes. Mr. Asha?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Miskelly?
Yes.
And Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Okay. Want to just do them all, Mike?
Okay, and the next one,
Sorry.
request for closed session, student expulsion, long-term suspension recommendation for 2024-2025 DM.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the request for closed session to discuss the Step 9 long-term suspension, expulsion, discipline recommendations for student 2024-25 DM.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Martin, aye. Mr. Asha?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Miskelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye. Okay, item C, request for closed session, student expulsion, long-term suspension recommendation for 2024-2025 MH.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the request for closed session to discuss the Step 9 long-term suspension, expulsion, discipline recommendations for student 2024-25 MH.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Martin, aye. Mr. Asha?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Miskelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye. Item D, request for closed session, student expulsion, long-term suspension recommendation 2024-2025 CW.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the request for closed session to discuss the Step 9 long-term suspension, expulsion, discipline recommendations for student 2024-25 CW.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin for closed session. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Martin, aye. Mr. Asha?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Miskelly? Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye. And then item E, request for closed session, student expulsion, long-term suspension recommendation for 2024-2025 JM.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the request for closed session to discuss a Step 9 long-term suspension, expulsion, discipline recommendations for student 2024-25 JM.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Martin, yes. Mr. Asha?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor? Yes. Mr. Miskelly? Yes. Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye. All right. What we're going to do, for the record, it is 8:36. We will go into recess. We will reconvene at 8:45. I ask that the guardians and student for 2024-2025 BCB in the boardroom here. For the people that are watching on the internet, this will be the end of the meeting as far as the broadcast goes. If you wish to see what actions are taken at the conclusion of these closed meetings, you'll have to be on site here because we're not going to broadcast live. So that'll conclude that. So we are in recess until 8:45.